to the Tech Founder Show. Fascinating conversations with successful tech founders who shared their journeys, learnings, and insights with your host, Tony Zayas.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tech Founder Show. I'm excited today. We have Steven from the Suka company. Steven, thank you so much for joining. I really would love to hear, I'll let you give kind of the deep dive, but I just have the overview snippet. Suka, just to explain, it's helping remote workers to feel focused, energized, and productive.
Yep.
Tell me more, and I would like to hear about the coffee shop experience, kind of like where this came from.
Absolutely. The thing that we do is we provide an online space to co-work. And the reason we created this, my co-founder Michael and I, is that when the world went remote, there are fantastic benefits. Like, I don't commute anywhere. I don't waste 2 hours a day driving to an office, right? We hire global talent. You find an amazing developer in Europe or Asia or something, fantastic. It gives you a lot of flexibility, but the biggest downside that we found was you start to feel disengaged. There's only so much time you can just be working at home alone where you don't start to feel isolated, lonely, or disengaged. And on a personal mental health level, that manifests in bad ways where it's like, oh man, I haven't seen a person all day today. It's like 4 p.m. and I've been home alone. Yeah. And on the team size, it means higher churn. Because when people don't feel like they belong to a team, they just feel like they're lone wolves being hired somewhere, they're not engaged and they quit. They work 2 jobs at the same time. They don't work, they're not as productive. So that's really what we want to solve. On the personal level, we wanted people to get the feeling of like, I'm part of something. This is a beautiful place to work every day. This is the office for this generation. And for the companies to say, hey, you know what? My team has a place to work together and it bonds them together. And our retention is high. Our team spirit is higher. We get to see each other during the day. So that's kind of what we do. It's super fun.
Yeah. So just like logistically, like how does it work?
It is so simple. It's going to sound stupid simple when I describe this, but it's actually something we build and, we iterate. The idea is in the morning, just like a real office, you open up this website, hit play, and you can then see people around the world in your space, right? Mm-hmm. So little avatars of people working around the world, and you hear beautiful music. We give you all the focus tools that most of these apps charge for. We give you all those for free. You get 1,000 hours of scientifically designed focus music. And this is like 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures. This is, non-vocal ambient kind of music. You get Pomodoro timers, you get task lists, you get, an automated coach, you get meeting reminders so don't miss a meeting in case you're like deep in work.
Yeah.
Your coach will be like, hey, you have a meeting in 5 minutes. Like you should wrap it up. You get healthy breaks, you get all this stuff for free, but the experiences during the day, you have in the background this beautiful place where you look up, just like you were in a coffee shop or you were in an office, and you see like people working away and you can hover over them. You can see, like all these engineers are listening to this playlist. Let me try that playlist. Maybe that's a really, good productivity hack. You can see what part of the world they're in. And there's a group chat where people like can bond and like start to share, hey, this is what I'm working on. And does anyone know about this particular like framework? Or I'm writing a blog post. Does anyone want to read it? So it becomes a really collaborative, like fun place. It's about community.
I was going to ask about that, the interaction. So is that all via chat?
Yeah. It's super lightweight. We wanted this to be a focus tool, but also to be human. So it's not distracting, but it allows you, like when you're on your break, hey, if you want to check in and see like, oh, there's that guy, Tony. I see him all the time in here. And he's always posting. He's like, working on some new sales presentation. I wonder how it went. You can chat and it gives you those little lightweight human bonds that you miss when you're remote,
Yeah, totally makes sense. Similarly, but probably not as well thought out. When we went remote, so our firm used to be in an office, 2020 hit, kind of the same story as everybody else.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to have the office because we work with companies all over the place. And so one of the folks on our team actually came up with this idea we use Google Meet for our meetings. And she put it on the calendar, like every day there was this one room that you can go into and just hang out if you wanted.
Yeah.
And we called it the listening room. And it, for me, it was weird because it was just like, someone's having lunch or just type it or whatever. But some people like that, just having someone nearby, right? So I like the idea that you could see the avatar and then you can chat. But I felt like the video all the time was kind of weird. So
I'll tell you something. One of our learnings was this, because like your friend at work, we had a strong thesis that there's something just like human about seeing other people. Like when I was in film, I used to go to this Starbucks that was across from the Directors Guild. All these writers would go there to work. They could all work at home. They could all sit, at their kitchen tables and work, but they all came here. And it was just this feeling of like you looked up and you were around other people trying to do something great. In this case, probably write a TV pilot or, write an action script for some blockbuster. And so Michael and I were talking about that and said, how do we deliver a beautiful experience that gives you that sense of like, I'm part of something? And at first, we thought it was video. So when you logged in the morning, you keep this website open in the background while you're working, right? We had live video feeds of people around the world. And we realized it was too distracting when it was live because it encouraged you to actually watch it. It's like, what's that person doing? And, they're scratching their nose or, that thing. And we tuned it with the help of a lot of members. And we realized gave us the best effect was every 10 seconds, we just take a still image. So that way, when you look up, you can see who's in there and you get a relatively current within the last 8 or 9 seconds, an image of everyone there. So you're like, that, guy who's always coding in Germany, it's clearly like evening for him, but it's morning for this friend of mine in Oregon who's a CPA, right? Yeah. And that started to feel really like serene because you couldn't hear people, but you could see everybody, like working away on the keyboards, doing their stuff, just like you're in a coffee shop. And it's like, you can hear the music on the PA system, whatever. But when you look up, you just see everyone like writing away on their MacBooks, creating scripts and writing stuff. So that was one of the big lessons for us is it's not about video, it's about presence.
That's awesome. No, and this really resonates. I love the concept. The music, like the ambient and like, using for the beats per minute or whatever it is. Yep. I use stuff like that. So I totally love it. And we, before we started the recording, we talked about the whole idea of flow state. Yeah. What is behind this? Where did the idea to package this as it is, or it was as an MVP, where did it come from? Because you said it was really the pandemic, the shift to remote.
Yeah. What was interesting is the core of this was a flow state app that was really modeled on some of those principles of, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote the book Flow, that seminal work on like, what is this thing where you just like get so concentrated, like the world falls away. So we're thinking, how do you get people into that state, right? How do you give people the tools to be like, I need to do like 4 hours worth of work in an hour and a half. So block your distractions, beautiful music, get you in a certain rhythm, like give you a time boxing ability. So you can say, I have 30 minutes to do this. And it's, magical the way when you say I have 30 minutes to do it, you do it in 30 minutes, right? So we did a bunch of that as the core tools. And then when Michael and I looked at that, we said, what's missing is it needs to be wrapped in community. Because really, after the pandemic, there's this loss of community. Like we don't go and have those water cooler conversations in the office. Most of us aren't doing this anymore. So we don't necessarily have those beautiful moments of just like having lightweight interactions and looking around and being like, I'm part of something. So that was really, for us, the biggest expansion of saying like, okay, there are all these focus tools. There's the music and the coaches, but really what it is it's a co-working space. And these are features inside that. So that's what we did.
So what did the initial MVP look like?
Very similar. Just when we first built it, it was mainly timers, task lists, and music. And then when we added the ability to see other people and chat with other people, that our retention went through the roof. Because once you're connected to the people and you care, and like in the morning, you're excited to go like, oh, I'm going to start my day. Let me see if that guy Tony's in there. You know, he's always funny. Oh, let me see if that girl's in there. Let me see if those friends of mine in Montreal are working. You know, it's like the fun of going to an office or a coffee shop, or, you know, in college. I don't know if you ever went to study hall. It's like you go to study hall and it's a library. You're not really talking to anyone, but it's kind of cool. Like all your buddies are there cramming for finals and you're all in it together, you know?
Yeah. No, that's such a great point. And to your point, the idea of like that sense of community going away a bit or a lot when the pandemic hit, everyone was feeling it. And then as remote work just became somewhat a standard in a lot of industries, depending on what you're doing, how do you replace that and how do you deal with it? So it's a great solution. How did you guys go ahead?
And you know, the U.S. Surgeon General declared like the modern epidemic is loneliness.
I'm not surprised. That's
we're disconnected, but we as humans want to be connected.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys are actually serving, you know, some significant value and good, putting out good into the world. I love it.
We're trying, Tony. We're trying.
How did you get your first customers?
We had, obviously, you know, like every other founder, you know, you give it to friends and family, and hopefully they dig it and they share it a bit. We were very fortunate that a couple of notable engineers found it and dug it, tweeted about it. And that was a really helpful thing for us, because one of the things we realized is it's a kind of new concept. So people will adopt it when they hear about it from someone they trust. But in terms of just like, you know, running an ad or putting a, you know, post out there, blog post or something, like it's so novel that people are like, well, I don't know, it sounds cool, but I'm not really sure. But when they hear about it from like, oh no, my buddy Tony like does this and he loves it, changes the game. Then you're like, okay, I'll try it. It's like, you know, going to a new restaurant, you're like, I've never had Lebanese food, but Tony loves it and he's a good buddy of mine. Okay, I'll try Lebanese food, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense, just the nature of it. It's all about community and connection. So hearing from one is going to work better than that, you know, ad or cold message. No, it's really good. And the audience that you guys are really focused on, to that point of flow and deep work, you said it's the developers and other people that are really, you know, sitting there, have to get focused and doing.
We are a really helpful tool if you every day need to spend a couple hours doing deep work. So in other words, if you are a writer or a blogger, writing copy, if you're a designer and you're in Figma or whatever your favorite tool is, if you're a developer and you're in VS Code or whatever you use, that's where we live. We're not a tool really for salespeople, for marketers, for people who are on Zoom calls all day long. Like that's what they do. There's not deep work. We are absolutely for people who are like, hey man, I need to buckle down and I sure want to spend 2 hours doing this work instead of 4. And I think you said in one of your other podcast episodes, you talked about the sacred time of being with people in your real life, you know? And that is something that helped us name our company. Is when we talked to a lot of our power members and said, hey, just tell us, like, why do you come here? Why do you pay us every month? And it's a nominal fee. It's only a couple of bucks a month, but it's like, you know, why do you pay us? More than any single feature of like, oh, I do it for the music or I do it for this. Every single member said it's because of how I feel. Which leads you to ask then, well, how do you feel? Like, what does that mean? And it was a unified answer in this regard of, I can look up at 3:00 and be like, wow, I feel great. I'm done for the day. I can go play with my kids. Or I can look up at 6:00 and be like, where did the day go? Oh, I suck. Oh man, how did this happen again? I'll have to get up early tomorrow. And the difference that they said was whether I opened Suka in the morning and I stayed focused or not.
Wow.
That's why we said, you know what? What we do is we don't deliver focus. We deliver happiness. And the way we do it is by helping you be part of a focused community. So as you mentioned, the Suka company, our name, Suka means happiness in Sanskrit.
Love it. How did you develop the product to get to that point where you're getting these, this feedback, these testimonials of it's delivering happiness? You said the retention's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
How did you capture that? Like, obviously, sounds like you had some good ideas to start with, but how did you fine tune it? How did you capture feedback from the users?
Oh, you'll laugh. The most rudimentary way, when Michael and I started working based on the focus tool and saying, how do we turn this into a whole product, right? Yeah. Is I was getting married around that same time, and I was going on my honeymoon with my wife. So I knew for like a couple weeks, no one would bug me with the normal, like, hey man, we got to do this thing with the bank account, or the tax filings need to be done. I knew it'd be kind of quiet. So I asked Laura, my fiance wife, I was like, do you mind if during that quiet period, I talked to some of our power members, just like 5-10 minutes? She's like, sure, go for it. So I emailed them, literally just pulled email addresses out of our database, said, man, you've been in flow, you're like 7 hours this week, you've been an hour in flow, 5 hours this week. Would you be down getting on a Zoom call for like 10 minutes? Because I'd just love to understand. Super engaged audience. A lot of them said, yeah, I can spare 5 or 10 minutes to chat. And that's where the name of the company came from. That's where the validation of this idea of, oh, let's build out a way for you to really like engage with each other in a lightweight way, like in a non-distracting way. And how do we make work fun? How do we make you look forward in the morning to hitting play and going, let me see which of my buddies are in here? And it all came from that, which is super. I know it's not like massive, N equals 10,000 user surveys with buttons and type forms and all that. It was just like this, Tony. It was just like, Tony, tell me, why do you come every day?
I'll tell you what, I asked that question to a lot of the founders that I talked to. And I think a lot of people believe that there should be this, process and mechanisms in place to like automatically capture feedback, process, all that. Mm-hmm. But usually comes down to the most successful founders will say, you know what? I make a point to like talk to the customers. Like I will send some emails and say, would love to spend a few minutes just getting your feedback, just kind of like what you said, and just having that honest, real conversation. So no, it's good. I mean, I think that's, success leaves clues, right? And so I think that's one of them. You have to be in there having those real conversations.
I totally agree. And there is value. I don't mean to diminish any sort of quantitative data. Like there's value in going like, hey, 62% of our members do this thing, and then we changed it in A/B test, and 75% do the thing we want. Oh, that's really valuable. Like that's super valuable, right? But what I mean is there are a certain set of questions where you want to look in someone's eye and hear what they say and responsively like adapt what you ask next. Not like if they say they like music, then go down this part of the funnel and then ask them what kind of music and then how many. But rather think of saying like, okay, you sort of sound like you're here for the music, but there was something in your voice. You know what it is I really wish you had a playlist that was lo-fi. Oh, okay. Well, that was not part of, the funnel tree I was going to ask about, but let's talk. What do you like about lo-fi music? Oh, okay, cool. We can do that. By the way, out of that conversation, we have 3 lo-fi soundtracks, playlists in the app. So I think there's something about having, especially these early days, those conversations where it's like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. In a world of funnels and chatbots, AI, there's something novel about that authentic conversation and where it goes. So that's really cool. Would love to hear just what the future looks like for the business. What are the plans for the next year? And then where do you guys want to be in the next 5 years?
To be very immodest, we want to build the office for this generation.
Yeah.
We are not a generation that's like, oh, I'm super excited to go drive 45 minutes in traffic to go to an office and have like beanbag chairs and nap pods. Oh, this is so great being at Google, And if we can give people a place to be more productive than they were in the office, that whole thing about like, well, I run a company. I'm worried that people who are remote workers are not actually working. They're playing with their dog or napping or doing 4 jobs, whatever. If we can get people that is like an incredibly fun, pleasurable experience like all this beautiful way to create, a working environment that allows people to be more productive, get the work done sooner, and be happier so that they don't churn. They quit less. Like there are so many companies that are dealing with, remote employees quit more frequently. Yeah, you think? Because do you really engage them? Like your semi-annual, let's go do trust falls in Sonoma, in the woods. You know what? It's not really that engaging because the other, 179 days of that, half year or whatever, people are just working at home. And they, doing a 15-minute Zoom stand-up, everyone hates Zoom. Zoom feels like it's the pandemic and you're like on Zoom cocktails again. It's awful, So that's our big goal. And it sounds immodest, but we believe that there's a space to say, here is the office experience reinvented for this generation.
Love it. What did we not cover that we should be talking about?
No, you hit the core of it. I mean, trust me, I could talk for 2 hours, but no one wants to hear that.
No,
the core of it is for people who are working at home, knowledge workers, writers, designers, developers, that are like, I would love to have a fun community where I'm excited to join them every morning. Like one of my happiest days was like, I don't know, last week before. There's a guy I don't know in Missouri who's one of the members, and he posted into the group chat that he finished his dissertation. And all these people that I know don't know him. Like I know they're all over the world. We're like, congrats, Roy. Oh, it's so great. We've been watching you work on that for months as he posts little like status updates. Like today I worked for 2 hours and 12 minutes on this part of my dissertation. And when he posted, I delivered my dissertation, whatever, like it was beautiful to see the community go like, congrats, man. We've been watching you. That looked really hard, So that's probably the coolest thing. If you want to be part of a community that supports each other and being productive, getting off work sooner, feeling happier and less stressed, that's what we do. That is why we're here.
So you have it on the screen, but if someone wants to try it out, thesuka.co.
Yep. 14 days free.
Free trial there that I see. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then last question I want to toss out to you, Stephen, before we wrap it up for today. But if you had a conversation with your former self right before you guys launched the company, just thinking about it, you can only give yourself one piece of advice. What would it be?
Oh, I can tell you exactly what it would be. So many friends who are CEOs or C-suite officers of companies, when I've described what I was going to do or what I was doing, were like, oh man, I need that so badly. Oh, I have ADHD. Like, oh, I need this tool. Not one of them is able to use it. I wouldn't have spent any time being like, oh my God, Tony, here, you should try it. Let me onboard you. Because now I understand the reality is if your life is like being on Zoom calls, sales, marketing, C-suite,
yeah,
it is. I should have said to them, hey man, it's not worth your time or mine for me to actually like onboard you. But if you have teams of developers, or if you have copywriters on staff, or you have, we also work well for attorneys, I noticed, accountants. Like people have to sit there for a couple hours and do deep work, and they can do it in 4, or they get to do it in 2. We help them get it all done in 2. That's what I would have said is, Tony, it's not for you, man. But if you've got a team of developers, let me show it to them.
So it's getting that right audience.
Yep.
Totally makes sense. Awesome. Well, really good stuff, Stephen. I really appreciate you being on here today.
It was a pleasure.
Everybody go check it out, thesuka.co. I'm going to go get my free trial started here as soon as we disconnect. But
there you go.
It's a lot. And you know what? In my role, I actually split like 50% of my day is typically on meetings, but then I got to get into deep work mode, and that's important for me to be able to snap into it. So I do think that I could be a user for it. So awesome. I appreciate your time, Stephen.
I'll see you in the Suka.
Awesome. Sounds great. And we'll see everybody next time. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
This episode of the Tech Founder Show has been brought to you by Incivia. Find out how we help B2B SaaS and tech companies to engage, convert, and retain more customers at Incivia.com.